The thorn bit into my thumb, drawing a perfect bead of crimson that matched the roses I was trimming. I watched it well for a second before pressing the wound against my apron, adding another stain to the collection. Blood and chlorophyll and the ghost of yesterday's coffee. The uniform of a florist who couldn't afford to slow down. Yara, the Moretti wedding order needs to go out in 20 minutes. My boss, Linda, appeared in the doorway of the cooler, her breath fogging in the frigid air. And Mrs. Chen called again about her anniversary arrangement. She wants more peonies. I nodded, not trusting my voice. 3 hours of sleep would do that. 3 hours because I'd spent the rest of the night with a chair wedged under my apartment doorknob, jumping at every sound in the hallway, every car engine on the street below. Derek had found my new number somehow. 4 missed calls. No voicemails. He never left voicemails, just the calls themselves, a reminder that he was out there, watching, waiting. The flower shop, petals and stems, Linda's pride and joy, sat on the corner of 5th and Madison, wedged between a designer handbag boutique and an artisanal chocolate shop. The kind of neighborhood where a dozen roses cost what I used to spend on groceries for a week. I'd been working here for 6 months, ever since I'd fled my old life, my old apartment, my old self, the self that had been foolish enough to love Derek Morrison. I finished the Moretti arrangement with mechanical precision, my fingers moving through the motions even as my mind drifted. White roses for purity, eucalyptus for protection, baby's breath for everlasting love. All the pretty lies we tell ourselves about forever. I'd believed in forever once, before Derek's hands had found my throat, before I'd learned that jealousy could masquerade as love until it was too late. The shop door chimed, and I flinched so hard I nearly dropped the vase. Just a customer. Always. Just a customer. But my heart hammered against my ribs anyway, my body refusing to believe what my mind knew. Be right with you, I called, forcing brightness into my voice as I carried the arrangement to the front counter. The woman was elegant, mid-40s, dressed in clothing that whispered wealth rather than shouted it. She smiled at the Moretti arrangement. Beautiful. Is that for a wedding? Yes, ma'am. We specialize in events. I slipped into my customer service persona like a familiar coat, hiding the trembling in my hands. We discussed her daughter's upcoming engagement party, and I took notes, sketched ideas, quoted prices that made my stomach clench. A month ago, I could have afforded these flowers without thinking. Now I lived on ramen and hope, sleeping in a studio apartment where the heat was more suggestion than fact. After she left, I glanced at the clock. Nearly 3. I had a standing appointment at 3:15, my weekly trip to the bank 2 blocks away to deposit my meager paycheck. Routine was dangerous. Derek thrived on routine. But rent was due, and my landlord didn't accept excuses. I grabbed my coat, told Linda I'd be back in 20 minutes, and stepped out into the October afternoon. The air had that metallic bite that promised winter, sharp enough to make my lungs ache. I walked quickly, head down, scanning the sidewalk ahead and behind in practiced intervals. The bank was mercifully empty. I filled out my deposit slip, handed it to the teller with a smile that didn't reach my eyes, and was back on the street in 10 minutes. 13 minutes ahead of schedule. Maybe I'd browse the bookstore next door, kill some time before. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach dropped to my feet. I shouldn't answer. I knew I shouldn't answer. But my thumb moved anyway, swiping to accept the call. Yara. Derek's voice, smooth as poisoned honey. I know you're avoiding me, baby. That's not very nice. I ended the call, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. He was close. He had to be close. You didn't call someone to taunt them unless you could watch their reaction. My gaze swept the street wildly. Too many people. Too many faces. Any one of them could be him. The bank, the bookstore, the coffee shop, the There. Across the street, half hidden in a storefront alcove. The set of his shoulders, the way he held his head, the jacket I'd bought him for his birthday last year. Derek. Watching me. Our eyes met, and he smiled. Started to cross the street. I ran. My heel caught on a crack in the sidewalk and I stumbled, caught myself, kept going. Behind me, I heard him call my name, not loud enough to draw attention, just loud enough for me to hear. Panic clawed at my throat, shortening my breath, making the world narrow to a tunnel. I ducked into the first open door I saw. A men's clothing boutique, all dark wood and leather chairs and suits that cost more than my car used to. A sales associate looked up, surprised, but I was already moving deeper into the store, past racks of Italian wool and Egyptian cotton, toward the back where a man stood examining a display of ties, his back to me. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been painted on. Dark hair, just touched with silver at the temples. I didn't think. Couldn't think. Derek would check in here, would find me, would... I grabbed the stranger's arm, felt him stiffen in surprise, and before he could turn fully, I was kissing him. Not a gentle kiss, a desperate one. My hands fisting in his shirt, my mouth urgent against his, trying to sell the illusion that this was real, that I belonged here, that Derek would see us and leave. The stranger froze for half a heartbeat. Then his hands came up to frame my face, gentle but firm, and he was kissing me back. Really kissing me. His mouth moved over mine with a confidence that made my knees weak, coaxing rather than demanding, one hand sliding to the small of my back to steady me. He tasted like espresso and something darker, something that made heat pool low in my belly despite the terror still racing through my veins. When he finally pulled back, his eyes, storm gray, intense, held mine with an expression I couldn't read. "Please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Please, just pretend you know me. My ex is outside. He's dangerous. I just need him to think." Yara Bennett. His voice was deep, accented. Italian, I thought distantly. "I know exactly who you are." The world tilted. I stumbled back, but his hand at my waist held me steady. "How do you—" "Mr. Castellano." The sales associate appeared, nervousness evident in the way he wrung his hands. "Is everything—" "Fine, Marco. The lady and I are old friends." Those gray eyes never left mine. "Aren't we, Yara?" I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This stranger knew my name. This stranger whose mouth I'd just... The shop door chimed. Derek's voice, sharp and demanding. "Did a woman just come in here? Blonde, about 5'6", wearing a blue coat?" "I'm afraid not, sir," Marco replied smoothly, too smoothly. "Only Mr. Castellano and his companion have been here this afternoon." Silence. Then, "You're sure?" "Quite sure, sir. Would you like to browse our selection?" "No." Footsteps retreating, the door chiming again. I sagged against the stranger, Castellano, my legs refusing to hold me. His arm tightened around my waist, supporting me easily. "Thank you," I breathed. "Thank you. I don't know how to—" "You can thank me over dinner." Not a question. A statement. "Tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll send a car." I blinked up at him, confused. I can't." "You can, and you will." He released me slowly, as if making sure I could stand on my own. "Because Derek Morrison isn't going to stop looking for you, Yara, and you need protection." He straightened his tie, his expression unreadable. "Fortunately, protection is something I excel at providing." "I don't understand. How do you know my name? How do you know about Derek?" A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Not warm, not cold. Something in between that made my spine prickle. I know everything about you, Miyakara. I've made it my business to know. He reached into his pocket, withdrew a business card, pressed it into my hand. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. Then he was walking away, nodding to Marco, disappearing through a door in the back of the shop that probably led to some private fitting area, leaving me standing there with his card burning in my palm. Victor Castellano. No title. Just a name and a phone number, embossed in black on heavy cream stock. I should have thrown it away. Should have run back to the flower shop, grabbed my things, disappeared to another city, another state. But I stood there, thumb tracing the letters of his name, remembering the taste of his mouth, the way he'd held me like I was something precious and fragile and utterly his, like he'd been waiting for me to run straight into his arms. I didn't go home after work. Instead, I walked 12 blocks out of my way, doubled back twice, and entered my building through the service entrance in the alley. Derek had taught me to be paranoid. Victor Castellano had just reminded me why. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it, sparse, cold, the radiator clanking uselessly in the corner. I dropped my bag on the sagging couch and stared at the card still clutched in my hand. Victor Castellano. A man who knew my full name, knew about Derek, knew things he shouldn't know unless he'd been watching me. The realization hit like ice water. How long? Days? Weeks? I thought back to the past month, trying to remember if I'd seen him before. That face, those eyes. I would have remembered. But maybe that was the point. Maybe he'd been careful. Invisible. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I almost didn't answer, but something made me look at the screen. Not a call this time. A text. The car will arrive at 6:45. Wear something nice. V. My hand started shaking again. How did he have my number? I'd changed it 3 times since leaving Derek. Kept it unlisted. Gave it to almost no one. I typed back, I never said I'd come. The reply was instant. You will, because you're smart enough to know you need me. I don't need anyone. Tell that to the man who followed you home from the bank. He's sitting in a gray sedan across from your building right now. 3rd parking spot from the corner. Would you like me to make him leave? I rushed to the window, peering through the gap in the curtains. My apartment faced the street, 4th floor, just high enough to see the cars below. Gray sedan, 3rd spot. And there, silhouetted behind the wheel, Derek. A sob caught in my throat. He knew where I lived. Of course he knew. He always found me eventually. Another text. Say the word, Yara. I can have him gone in 5 minutes. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. What did gone mean? And who was Victor Castellano that he could make a man disappear with a text message? How? I typed. Does it matter? Yes, no, I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that Derek was out there, and I was in here, and eventually he'd find a way in. He always did. What do you want from me? I sent. The pause before his response felt loaded with meaning. Dinner, conversation, the pleasure of your company, nothing you're not willing to give. And if I say no, then I'll respect your decision, and you'll spend the rest of the night wondering when Derek will knock on your door, wondering if your locks will hold, wondering if tonight's the night he finally... Stop. I typed it fast, my stomach churning. Stop. 6:45, Miyakara. The choice is yours. I looked down at Derek's car. As I watched, a black SUV pulled up behind it, blocking it in. 2 men got out, large men, the kind who made their living with their bodies rather than their minds. They approached Derek's sedan. I couldn't see what happened next, but 30 seconds later, Derek's car was pulling away, tires squealing slightly as he fled. The SUV followed at a leisurely pace. My phone. See? I'm a man of my word. Now go get ready. And Yara, don't make me wait. I should have been terrified. Should have recognized the manipulation, the control, the way he'd orchestrated everything from the moment I'd stumbled into that boutique. But all I felt was a strange, intoxicating relief. For the first time in 6 months, someone else was handling Derek. Someone else was standing between me and the monster I'd loved, even if that someone might be a monster himself. I showered quickly, the hot water a luxury I usually rationed. My closet was a graveyard of my old life. Designer dresses I'd been too sentimental to sell, shoes that cost more than my monthly rent, jewelry I never wore because it attracted the wrong kind of attention. I ran my fingers over a black cocktail dress, simple but elegant, the kind of thing I used to wear to gallery openings and charity dinners when I'd been a different person. When I'd had a trust fund and a future, and no idea how quickly both could disappear, I was sliding into heels when my phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call from Victor's number. Hello? My voice sounded steadier than I felt. You're still in your apartment. His voice was even deeper over the phone, intimate despite the distance. The car is downstairs. How do you know I'm still... I stopped. Stupid question. Are you watching me right now? I'm always watching you, Yara. You just didn't know it until today. A pause. The blue dress, not the black. Trust me. I looked at the blue dress hanging beside the black one. Silk, the color of midnight, with a neckline that suggested rather than revealed. I'd bought it for my birthday last year. Never worn it. Derek had said it made me look like I was trying too hard. The blue one is too... perfect. It's perfect. His voice dropped lower. Wear it for me. The presumption should have angered me. Instead, I found myself reaching for the blue dress, sliding the black one back into the closet. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The Yara who looked back at me wasn't the frightened florist who jumped at shadows. She was someone else. Someone who wore silk like armor and met strange men for dinner without knowing their intentions. Someone dangerous. I liked her. The car was exactly where Victor had promised. A sleek black town car with tinted windows, idling at the curb. The driver got out as I approached, opening the door with practiced efficiency. He was older, distinguished, with the kind of face that had seen everything and been surprised by nothing. Miss Bennett, he said, his accent matching Victor's. I'm Salvatore. Mr. Castellano sends his regards. The interior of the car smelled like leather and wealth. I sank into the seat, and Salvatore closed the door with a soft click that sounded like finality. Like I'd just made a choice I couldn't unmake. We drove in silence through the city streets, heading uptown into neighborhoods I rarely visited anymore. The buildings grew taller, the storefronts more exclusive, the people on the sidewalks better dressed. We passed restaurants I'd eaten at in my old life, galleries where I'd browsed art I couldn't afford even then, the park where I'd walked on Sunday mornings before everything fell apart. Finally, we stopped in front of a building that looked like it had been transplanted from Renaissance Italy. All stone facades and arched windows, and an elegance that made my chest ache with something like nostalgia. A doorman materialized before Salvatore could come around to open my door. Miss Bennett, Mr. Castellano is expecting you. Top floor. The elevator was old-fashioned, all brass and mirrors, ascending with a smoothness that spoke of meticulous maintenance. My reflection multiplied around me. A woman in a blue dress with wild eyes and kiss-swollen lips from a kiss I'd stolen hours ago. The doors opened directly into an apartment that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the lights spreading out like a carpet of stars. The space was enormous, decorated with a restraint that screamed money. Modern furniture balanced with antique pieces, contemporary art on the walls, a grand piano in the corner that looked like it was actually played. And in the center of it all, silhouetted against the windows with a glass of wine in his hand, stood Victor Castellano, He'd changed since this afternoon, traded the suit for dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, top button undone. The casual elegance suited him, made him look less like a businessman and more like a predator at rest. Yara. He turned, and that small smile played at his lips again. You wore the blue. I'm pleased. You didn't give me much choice. I stepped out of the elevator, trying not to show how overwhelmed I felt. Seeing as you were watching. I told you. I'm always watching. He set down his wineglass and crossed to me, moving with a grace that reminded me of a big cat. Dangerous. Contained. It's become something of a hobby. How long? I demanded, finding my courage. How long have you been stalking me? Stalking. He tasted the word, amused. Such an ugly term for something so beautiful. I prefer to think of it as ensuring your safety. You don't even know me, don't I? He reached out, his fingers grazing my cheek so lightly I might have imagined it. I know you take your coffee black with 2 sugars, even though you tell people you take it plain. I know you always choose the white roses when you arrange bouquets for yourself, even though you sell more red. I know you haven't slept through the night in 6 months, that you check your locks 3 times before bed, that you flinch every time a man raises his voice. His thumb traced my lower lip. I know Derek Morrison hurt you in ways that have nothing to do with the bruises he left. Tears burned behind my eyes. You can't possibly... I know everything, Mia Cara. Everything. Because I've been watching you since the moment you walked into Petals and Stems 6 months ago. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. Since before that, actually. Since the night you ran from Derek's apartment with nothing but the clothes on your back and fear in your eyes. I was there, Yara. In the coffee shop across the street. I watched you run, and I decided then. His hand slid to the back of my neck, possessive, intimate. That you were mine to protect. I should have pulled away. Should have demanded answers, explanations. Should have run back to the elevator and never looked back. But his touch anchored me, steady and sure, and for the first time in 6 months, I felt safe. Why? I whispered. His smile widened, and there was something dark in it, something that made my pulse quicken with equal parts fear, and something I didn't want to name. Because you kissed me, Cara. You walked into my world and kissed me like you were drowning and I was air. And now... His grip tightened fractionally. Now you're mine. The only question is how long it takes you to accept it. Dinner was laid out on a table by the windows, pasta that smelled divine, wine that probably cost more than my rent, candles that cast dancing shadows across Victor's face. He seated me with old-world courtesy, his hand lingering on my shoulder just a moment too long before he took his own seat across from me. Eat, he said simply. You're too thin. I eat plenty. The lie was automatic. He raised an eyebrow, and I remembered he knew everything, including apparently that I'd been living on ramen and stolen breaks from Linda's lunch orders. I took a bite of pasta to avoid his knowing gaze. It was perfect, obviously. Everything in Victor Castellano's world seemed to be perfect, including the way he watched me eat, his own food largely ignored, his attention fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Tell me about Derek, he said after a moment. I set down my fork. I'd rather not. I didn't ask what you'd rather do. I asked you to tell me about Derek Morrison, how you met, how it started, how it ended. He leaned back in his chair, wine glass dangling from his fingers. I want to hear it from you. Why? You said you know everything. I know the facts. Police reports, medical records, witness statements from neighbors who heard you screaming. His voice remained conversational, but something cold flickered in his eyes. I want to know how it felt. The question was so unexpected, so intimate, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. How it felt. Not what happened, but how it felt. Like drowning, I heard myself say. Slowly. So slowly I didn't realize it was happening until I was already under. Victor said nothing, just waited, and somehow his silence was more compelling than any demand. We met at an art gallery. He was charming, successful, attentive. He made me feel seen in a way I never had before. I laughed bitterly. I thought I was so lucky. This handsome, passionate man who couldn't get enough of me, who wanted to know where I was every moment, who called me 10 times a day, who got jealous when other men even looked at me. I met Victor's eyes. I thought it meant he loved me. When did you realize it didn't? The first time he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises. He apologized, cried, said he just loved me so much that the thought of losing me made him crazy. I twisted my napkin between my fingers. The second time, he explained that I'd made him do it by flirting with the waiter. The third time, my voice caught. The third time, he wrapped his hands around my throat and told me he'd kill me if I ever tried to leave. But you did leave. Victor's voice was soft. 6 months ago. What changed? I was silent for a long moment, staring at the city lights beyond the windows. What had changed? One day I'd been the woman who made excuses for her boyfriend's temper, and the next I'd been running through the streets with nothing but my purse and my fear. I saw it, I said finally. My future. We were at his apartment, and he was yelling about something. I don't even remember what, and I caught sight of myself in the mirror. There was a handprint bruise on my neck from the night before, and I was wearing a turtleneck in August to hide it. And I swallowed hard. I looked like my mother. Victor's expression sharpened. Your mother was abused? For 20 years, by my father. She never left him. Made excuses, hid bruises, told everyone she was just clumsy. The old pain throbbed in my chest. She died when I was 19. Fell down the stairs. That's what the death certificate said. But I knew. We all knew. And you promised yourself you'd never be her. I promised myself I'd never be her, I confirmed. So when Derek went to the bathroom, I grabbed my purse and I ran. I didn't even pack a bag, just ran. And he's been looking for you ever since. I nodded. I changed my name, not legally, but I use my mother's maiden name now. Bennett instead of Crawford. Changed my phone number, moved to a different borough. Cut off everyone from my old life. I thought... My laugh was shaky. I thought I was being so clever. You were clever, Victor said. You made it difficult enough that an ordinary man would have given up. But Derek Morrison isn't ordinary, is he? He's obsessed. He took a sip of wine, his gaze never leaving mine. Which is why you need me. To protect me. To own you. The correction was gentle but firm. Protection is what you hire bodyguards for, Yara. What I'm offering is something else entirely. My heart hammered. And what's that? He stood, moving around the table with that predatory grace, and pulled out my chair. I rose automatically, and suddenly we were standing too close, his hand on my waist, his body radiating heat that made me dizzy. Belonging, he said softly. You belong to me now. Under my protection, yes, but also under my authority, my rules, my control. His thumb traced circles on my hip, through the silk of my dress. I will keep you safe from Derek, from anyone who wants to hurt you. But in return, you give me your obedience. I should have been outraged, should have slapped him and stormed out and found my own way to deal with Derek. But I couldn't move. couldn't think past the feel of his hand on my body and the dark promise in his eyes. "That's insane," I whispered. "Is it? You've been running for 6 months, Kara. Hiding, afraid, barely surviving. Has your independence kept you safe?" He leaned closer, his lips brushing my ear. "I can make Derek disappear. Permanently. Say the word, and by tomorrow morning, you'll never have to fear him again." The temptation was overwhelming. To simply hand over my fear, my constant vigilance, my exhaustion. To let someone else carry it. To let Victor carry it. "What's the catch?" I asked. "No catch, just understanding." He pulled back slightly, his gray eyes searching mine. "You do what I say, when I say it. You don't leave my sight without permission. You don't make decisions without consulting me first." His hand slid up to cup my face. "You become mine, Yara. Completely. Utterly. No more running. No more hiding. Just surrender. That's not protection. That's just another kind of prison." "Is it?" His smile was almost sad. "Or is it freedom? Freedom from fear, from constant vigilance, from having to be strong every moment of every day. Freedom to simply..." His thumb traced my lower lip again. "Exist, without having to fight for it." I closed my eyes, hating how seductive his words were. How much I wanted to believe him. "I don't even know you," I said, opening my eyes to find him watching me with that unnerving intensity. "I don't know what you do, who you are, why you've been watching me. I think you know exactly what I am, Miyakara. You're just afraid to say it out loud." He released me, stepping back, and I immediately felt the loss of his warmth. "But I'll tell you anyway, since you seem to need the words. I'm Victor Castellano. I run the Castellano family operation, import, export, real estate, various business ventures, both legitimate and otherwise. I'm what people call a criminal, though I prefer entrepreneur with flexible ethics." My stomach dropped. "You're Mafia, yes. The head of the Castellano crime family, to be precise." He said it so casually, like he was admitting to being a lawyer or a banker. "I've killed men, Yara. Ordered deaths, sanctioned violence, built an empire on fear and loyalty and blood. Does that frighten you?" It should have. God, it should have. But all I could think was that this dangerous man had been watching over me for 6 months, that he'd made Derek flee with a single text message, that he'd looked at me like I was something precious instead of broken. "Yes," I admitted, "but not as much as Derek does." Victor's smile was sharp, satisfied. "Good. Fear is honest. We can work with fear." He moved to the bar, poured himself another glass of wine. "I'm going to make you an offer, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Can you do that for me?" I nodded mutely. "Move in with me. Here, in this apartment. I have a guest room that will be yours, with your own bathroom, your own space. You'll be safe, protected, provided for. You can keep your job at the flower shop if you wish, though you won't need the money. I'll take care of everything, rent, food, clothes, whatever you need." He turned to face me. "In return, you belong to me. Not sexually, not unless you want that, and you'll be the one to initiate if it happens. But in every other way. You obey my rules, you check in with me, you let me know where you are and what you're doing at all times. You accept my authority over your life. And Derek? We'll never touch you again. I give you my word on that." The promise in his voice was absolute. "Say yes, Yara. Stop running and let me catch you." I looked around the apartment, the space, the luxury, the safety it represented. Then I thought of my studio with its broken lock and useless radiator, my constant fear, my exhaustion. Victor was offering me a gilded cage, yes, but it was warm, and Derek couldn't get inside. I need time, I said, to think about it. Of course. He set down his glass and pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Salvatore will take you home. But Yara? He looked up, and there was something dark and possessive in his gaze that made my breath catch. You'll come back. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow. But you'll come back. Because you're already mine. You just don't know it yet. The elevator ride down felt surreal. Salvatore drove me home in silence, and I climbed the stairs to my apartment in a daze. When I unlocked my door, I found an envelope that had been slipped underneath. Inside was a key, heavy, ornate, clearly expensive, and a note in bold, masculine handwriting, for when you're ready to come home. V. I stood there holding the key, feeling its weight in my palm, and realized with a mixture of terror and something dangerously close to relief that Victor was right. I was already his. I just hadn't admitted it yet. I lasted 3 days. 3 days of jumping at shadows, of Derek's gray sedan reappearing across from my building, of unknown numbers calling at all hours. 3 days of Linda asking if I was feeling all right, of customers commenting on how tired I looked, of staring at that key on my nightstand and wondering what would happen if I used it. On the 4th morning, I woke to find my apartment door ajar. I knew I'd locked it. Had checked it 3 times, same as always. But there it was, hanging open half an inch, just enough to let me know someone had been inside, or could still be inside. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and ran, down the stairs, out into the street, not caring that I was still in my pajamas, not caring about anything except getting away. I made it 2 blocks before I stopped, gasping, leaning against a brick wall while my heart tried to pound its way out of my chest. The key was in my coat pocket. I always carried it, though I'd told myself I never would. My fingers found it automatically, closing around the metal like a lifeline. I called the number on Victor's card. He answered on the first ring. Yara. My door. My voice broke. Someone opened my door. I locked it. I swear I locked it, but... Where are you? His voice was sharp, commanding. All business. Corner of Madison and 12th. I just ran. I didn't think... Stay there. Don't move. I'm sending someone. Victor, The word stuck in my throat. Say it, Kara. I need to hear you say it. I'll come. To your apartment. I took a shuddering breath. I accept your offer. All of it. The pause that followed felt eternal. Then, good girl. Salvatore will be there in 5 minutes. And Yara? You made the right choice. The line went dead. Salvatore arrived in 4 minutes, pulling up in the same black town car. He didn't comment on my pajamas or my bare feet, or the tears streaming down my face. Just opened the door, helped me inside, and drove me to Victor's building as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Victor was waiting in the lobby, still in a suit despite the early hour. When he saw me, something fierce and satisfied flashed in his eyes. He strode forward, shrugged out of his jacket, and wrapped it around my shoulders in one smooth motion. You're safe now, he said simply. Then to Salvatore, get her things from the apartment, everything. I want it cleared out by noon. Wait, I protested. My job. I need to call Linda. Already done. I bought the flower shop this morning. Linda will continue running it, but you're on indefinite paid leave. When you're ready to go back, if you want to go back, we'll discuss it. His hand settled at the small of my back, proprietary. Right now, we're going upstairs. You're going to shower, change into something comfortable, and sleep. When you wake up, we'll talk about the rules. I should have argued. Should have insisted on maintaining some independence. some control over my own life. But I was so tired. 6 months of fear had drained me down to nothing, and the thought of letting someone else make decisions, even for a few hours, was too seductive to resist. The hot shower in Victor's guest bathroom felt like absolution. The bathroom was larger than my entire studio had been, all marble and glass and luxury. I found women's toiletries already stocked, expensive brands, exactly the ones I used to use before Derek, before my life had fallen apart. A silk robe hung on the back of the door. I wrapped myself in it, breathing in the scent of lavender and something else, something masculine that I recognized as Victor's cologne. When I emerged, I found him in the bedroom, laying out clothes on the bed, soft leggings, a cashmere sweater, undergarments still in their packaging. "All your size," he said, catching my look. "I had them delivered yesterday, just in case." "You were very sure I'd say yes." "I was very sure you'd say yes eventually. I just didn't know it would be today." He moved toward the door. "Get dressed, sleep. I'll be in my office if you need me." "Victor." He paused, hand on the doorframe. "Thank you." His smile was small, almost tender. "Don't thank me yet, Kara. We haven't discussed the price." I slept for 10 hours straight, dreamless and deep. When I woke, the sun was setting, painting the guest room in shades of amber and gold. I found Victor in the living room, working on his laptop, the city lights beginning to twinkle beyond the windows. He looked up as I entered. "Feel better?" I nodded, taking a seat on the sofa across from him. My belongings were stacked neatly by the door, 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. Everything I owned in the world. "We need to establish ground rules," Victor said, closing his laptop and giving me his full attention. "First, and most important, you don't leave this apartment without me or one of my men. Not for work, not for errands, not for anything. Is that clear? What if I want to go for a walk? Then you tell me, and I'll arrange for security. This isn't negotiable, Yara. There are people in my world who would hurt you to get to me, and Derek is still out there. Until both those threats are neutralized, you stay where I can protect you." I swallowed my protest. I'd agreed to this. "Okay. What else?" "You check in with me throughout the day. Morning, afternoon, evening. Just a text to let me know you're safe. If your plans change, you tell me immediately." "That seems excessive." "It's necessary." His gaze was steady, unyielding. "I need to know where you are at all times. It's not about control, Yara. It's about keeping you alive. And if I forget, then there will be consequences. Nothing physical," he added quickly, seeing my expression. "But privileges will be revoked. You want to go to the flower shop? That requires trust. You want to have lunch with a friend? That requires trust. You want freedom within this arrangement?" He leaned forward. "Then you have to earn it by following the rules." It was manipulation, I knew. A system designed to make me compliant, obedient. But it was also honest. Victor wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was. A transaction. My safety for my submission. "What about—" I hesitated. "What about intimate things? You said you wouldn't—" "I won't touch you unless you ask me to. That's a promise." His voice softened. "But I won't lie to you, Kara. I want you. I've wanted you since the moment I first saw you. And eventually, you'll want me too. When that happens, when you come to me and ask." His smile was dark. "Then all bets are off." Heat flooded through me at the promise in his words. I looked away, unable to hold his gaze. "There's something else you should know," Victor continued. "Derek came by your old apartment this morning. He's the one who broke in." My blood ran cold. How do you know? Because I had cameras installed in your building. I've been monitoring your apartment for weeks. He said it without shame, without apology. He used a copied key, let himself in, walked around, touched your things. He was looking for you, Yara, and he won't stop looking. So what do? We let him look. And when he finds you, because he will eventually, I'll be here. Victor's expression went hard, dangerous. And then the problem of Derek Morrison will be permanently solved. The casual way he spoke of violence should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a fierce, primal satisfaction. Let Derek come. Let him finally face someone who wouldn't back down, wouldn't run, wouldn't be afraid. There's one more thing, Victor said, pulling something from his pocket. A phone. New, expensive, identical to his own. Your new phone. It's secure, encrypted, monitored by my people. Your old number is disconnected. Only people I approve will have this number. I took the phone, feeling the weight of what it represented. Another tie binding me to Victor's world. Another piece of my old life severed. This is really happening, I said softly. I'm really doing this. Yes. Victor stood, moved to sit beside me on the sofa, close enough that I could feel his heat, smell his cologne. You're really doing this. And Yara? His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. I'm going to take such good care of you. You'll never have to be afraid again. I looked at our joined hands, at the way his palm dwarfed mine, and felt something shift inside me. Fear, yes, but also something else, something dangerous and addictive that felt uncomfortably like desire. I'm still going to fight you, I warned. On the small things. I'm not going to be completely docile. His laugh was low, approving. I'd be disappointed if you were. I don't want a doll, Yara. I want you. Stubborn, fierce, beautiful you. I just want you safe while you're being those things. The sun had fully set now, the city transformed into a sea of lights beyond the windows. Victor's apartment, my new home, felt like a fortress, impenetrable and secure. For the first time in 6 months, I felt the tight knot of fear in my chest begin to loosen. Show me the rest of the apartment, I said, standing. If I'm going to live here, I should know my way around. Victor's smile was pleased as he rose to join me. Of course. Let me give you the tour. As he showed me around, the gourmet kitchen I'd probably never use, the library filled with books in multiple languages, the gym with its view of the park, his office that I was forbidden from entering without permission, I realized that I'd just made a choice. Maybe not the right choice, maybe not even a good choice, but it was mine. And for now, that was enough. Living with Victor Castellano was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd expected restrictions, constant supervision, a feeling of imprisonment despite the luxury. What I got instead was stranger, a kind of structured freedom that left me perpetually off balance. He left for work at 7 each morning, dressed in suits that probably cost more than I used to make in a month, always stopping by my room to check that I was awake. He'd bring coffee, black with 2 sugars, exactly how I liked it, and we'd talk for 15 minutes about nothing important. My plans for the day, whether I'd slept well, if I needed anything. It was domestic, almost normal, except for the bodyguard stationed outside the apartment door, except for the way Victor's hand would linger on my shoulder when he said goodbye, except for the heat in his eyes that made my stomach flip and my skin prickle with awareness. 2 weeks in, I finally asked to go back to the flower shop. You miss it, Victor observed over dinner. We ate together every evening, a ritual he insisted on. The work. I miss feeling useful. I'm going stir-crazy in here. I pushed food around my plate. I know you bought the shop, that Linda still thinks I'm just on leave, but you want to go back. He considered this, taking a sip of wine. All right, 3 days a week. Salvatore will drive you and wait outside. You'll check in every 2 hours, and you'll be home by 6. Non-negotiable. It wasn't complete freedom, but it was something. I nodded, relief washing through me. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Kara. There's a condition. He set down his wine glass, his gaze intense. Tomorrow night, you're accompanying me to a business dinner. Formal dress, upscale restaurant, several of my associates. You'll smile, make pleasant conversation, and most importantly, his voice dropped. You'll let everyone think we're together. My heart stuttered. Together? Like lovers. Like you belong to me. He leaned back in his chair, watching me. I need them to believe it, Yara. It protects you. If they think you're just some woman I'm keeping safe, you're vulnerable. If they think you're mine, truly mine, no one will dare touch you. The logic made sense, but the thought of pretending to be Victor's lover, of his hands on me in public, of playing a role that was becoming increasingly difficult to separate from reality. I don't know if I can be convincing, I admitted. His smile was knowing. You will be. Because it won't really be pretending, will it, Miyakara? I looked away, face burning, because he was right. The attraction I'd felt that first day in the boutique had only grown stronger. Every morning when he brought me coffee. Every evening when we sat close on the sofa, talking about our days. Every accidental brush of his hand against mine that felt increasingly deliberate. What if I mess up? I asked. Say something wrong? You won't. You're smarter than you think you are. He stood, moved to my side of the table and held out his hand. Come, let me show you something. I let him pull me to my feet and lead me to his office, the room I'd been forbidden from entering. He unlocked the door with a key from his pocket, and I stepped inside for the first time. The office was all dark wood and leather, masculine and imposing. But what caught my attention was the wall of monitors behind his desk. Security feeds, dozens of them, showing various locations throughout the city. The flower shop, my old apartment building, several street corners I didn't recognize. And there, in the corner, frozen on one screen, me. Walking into petals and stems 6 months ago, my face gaunt with fear, my shoulders hunched against the world. You've been watching me this whole time, I whispered. Yes. No apology, no shame. I needed to understand you, to know what you needed before you knew to ask for it. He moved to stand behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders. I know that terrifies you. I know it should make you run, but look. He gestured to the other monitors. Look where I'm watching. I looked. The flower shop where I worked. The streets I walked. My old building where Derek might return. Every location was a place I frequented, a place I might be vulnerable. You're not watching me, I realized slowly. You're watching over me. Now you're beginning to understand. His breath was warm against my ear. Everything I do, everything I've done since the moment I first saw you, has been about keeping you safe. Even when you didn't know I existed, I was there. Making sure Derek didn't find you. Making sure you had enough to eat. Making sure... Wait. What do you mean, making sure I had enough to eat? He hesitated, then... Linda's cash tips, the ones she'd share with you at the end of particularly good days. Those weren't from customers, Yara. Those were from me. I spun to face him, shock and anger warring in my chest. You've been giving me money? I've been taking care of you, he corrected. There's a difference. For 6 months. 6 months you've been manipulating my life without my knowledge. Yes. He caught my wrists as I tried to push him away. Yes. I've been manipulating your life, keeping you fed, keeping you safe, making sure you had what you needed to survive. And I'd do it again, Yara. I'd do it 100 times over because you needed help and you were too proud to ask for it. I didn't ask for any of this. You kissed me. His grip tightened. You walked into that boutique and you kissed me, and that was asking. That was begging. You might not have known what you were begging for, but I did. I knew from the moment your lips touched mine that you needed someone to take control, to make the fear stop, to carry the weight you've been carrying alone. He pulled me closer, and I decided I would be that someone. We were too close now, his body pressed against mine, his eyes dark with an intensity that made my knees weak. I should have been furious, should have demanded my freedom, my autonomy, my right to make my own choices. But all I could think about was how safe I felt in his arms. How the constant anxiety that had been my companion for 6 months had finally quieted. How, for the first time since I'd left Derek, I could breathe without checking over my shoulder. "This is insane," I whispered. "Yes," he agreed, "but you're not running." "I should be, but you're not." His hand slid up to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. "Do you know why?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. "Because you don't want to. Because somewhere deep inside, you know that this us is inevitable. You've known it since that kiss. You just needed time to accept it." His mouth hovered over mine, close enough that I could feel his breath. "Say it, Yara. Say you're mine." The word stuck in my throat. "I can't." "Not yet," he murmured. "But you will. Soon." Then he released me, stepped back, and the moment shattered. I stood there trembling, my skin too hot and too cold all at once. "The dinner tomorrow night," Victor said, his voice back to business as if nothing had happened. "Wear something elegant. I'll have options delivered to your room by morning." He moved to his desk, dismissing me. "And Yara? Practice looking at me like you adore me. It won't be difficult. You're already halfway there." I fled to my room, my heart racing, and locked the door behind me. Then I slid down to sit on the floor, my back against the wood, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He'd been watching me for 6 months, manipulating my life, inserting himself into my world without my knowledge or consent. It was stalking, obsession, control taken to its most extreme. But it was also protection, care, a strange, twisted form of devotion that had kept me safe when I'd had no one else. That night, I dreamed of Victor's hands on my skin, his mouth on mine, his voice murmuring in Italian as I woke gasping, my body aching with want, and hated myself for it. Hated that I wanted the man who'd taken over my life. Hated that the thought of tomorrow night's dinner, of pretending to be his, sent heat pooling low in my belly. But most of all, I hated that he was right. I didn't want to run anymore. The dress arrived at 7 in the morning, along with shoes, jewelry, and a note. "Dinner at 8. I'll come for you at 7:30. Try to look like you can't wait to see me. V." The dress was perfection. Deep emerald green, fitted to my body in ways that made my curves look deliberate rather than accidental, with a neckline that suggested without revealing. I put it on that evening, did my makeup with more care than I'd used in months, and stared at my reflection. I looked like the woman I used to be, before Derek, before fear, before Victor. No, not before Victor. I looked like the woman Victor saw when he looked at me. Strong, beautiful, his. The thought should have disgusted me. Instead, it made me stand taller. When he knocked on my door at 7:30 precisely, I opened it to find him in a black suit that made him look even more dangerous than usual. His eyes traveled over me slowly, thoroughly, and the heat in them made my breath catch. "Perfect," he said simply. Then he held out his arm. "Ready, Kara?" I placed my hand on his arm, felt the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric, and nodded. As we rode the elevator down to where Salvatore waited with the car, Victor leaned close. "Remember, tonight, you're mine, in every way that matters. Can you do that for me?" I looked up at him, at the man who'd been watching over me for half a year, who'd bought a flower shop just to keep me happy, who'd made Derek run with a single text message. The man who terrified me and made me feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. "Yes," I heard myself say. "I can do that." His smile was triumphant. "Good girl." And as his hand settled possessively at the small of my back, guiding me into the car, I realized with a mixture of terror and something dangerously close to exhilaration that I wasn't pretending anymore. I was his. I'd been his since the moment I'd kissed him. I just hadn't known it yet. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu, where the waiters moved like ghosts and the other diners spoke in hushed tones. Victor's hand remained at the small of my back as we were led to a private room in the back, where 5 men and 3 women already waited. They all stood when we entered, subtle shows of respect that told me exactly where Victor ranked in whatever hierarchy governed his world. Top. Always top. "Gentlemen, ladies," Victor's voice held easy authority. "This is Yara. She's mine, so I trust you'll all treat her with the respect she deserves. Mine." The word hung in the air, a claim and a warning. The dinner that followed was surreal. I smiled, made small talk with the women, wives and girlfriends of Victor's associates, I gathered, and tried not to think too hard about what associates meant in this context. Victor's hand found mine under the table, his thumb tracing patterns on my palm that made concentration difficult. He played the role of devoted lover with casual ease, touching me constantly. A hand on my knee, fingers trailing down my arm, his chair positioned just close enough that our bodies brushed when he leaned in to whisper something meant only for me. And the things he whispered. "You look beautiful tonight, Kara. I can't stop thinking about how that dress will look on my floor. Later, when we're alone, I'm going to show you exactly what you do to me." Each comment sent heat spiraling through me, made my skin prickle with awareness. This was supposed to be an act, but Victor's eyes held promises that had nothing to do with pretense. Midway through dinner, one of the men, Carlo, thick-necked and cold-eyed, leaned forward. "I hear Derek Morrison has been causing problems." The table went quiet. Victor's hand tightened on mine. "Nothing I can't handle," Victor said smoothly. "He broke into her old apartment," another man added. I didn't catch his name, but his accent was thicker than Victor's. "Looking for her. Word is he's making threats. Word travels fast." Victor's tone held warning. "We watch out for our own," Carlo said, his gaze sliding to me. "She's yours, which makes her family. If Morrison needs to be dealt with, I'll handle Morrison." Victor's voice went cold, dangerous. "He's mine to deal with. Is that clear?" Nods around the table. The message received and understood. After dinner, as we rode home in the back of the car, I finally asked, "Is Derek really making threats?" "Yes." Victor's arm was around my shoulders, holding me close. "He's been asking around, trying to find out where you are. He's become fixated. More than before? Much more. I think he knows I have you. Not where, not exactly how, but he knows. And it's making him reckless." Victor's jaw tightened, which is why I need you to trust me on what happens next. Fear spiked through me. What happens next? We draw him out. We let him find you, in a controlled setting, with my men positioned everywhere. We let him think he has a chance. Victor's eyes were hard. "And then we finish this, permanently." "You mean kill him?" "I mean protect you." He turned to face me fully. Derek Morrison is never going to stop Yara. Not until he has you or you're dead. Those are the only two endings to this story. Unless you kill him first. Unless I remove the threat. Yes. No apology in his voice. No shame. I need to know you're prepared for that. For what it means to be with me. I'm not with you. Not really. This is all pretend? He laughed softly. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels very real. The way you respond to my touch. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way you leaned into me tonight, like you belonged there. His hand cupped my face. You can lie to yourself, Kara, but don't lie to me. I opened my mouth to argue, to insist that this was just survival, just pragmatism, just... He kissed me. Not like that first desperate kiss in the boutique. This was slow, thorough, devastating. His mouth moved over mine with the confidence of a man who knew exactly what he was doing, coaxing rather than demanding, until I was kissing him back with a hunger that frightened me. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. Still pretend, he murmured against my lips. I couldn't answer, couldn't think past the feel of his mouth on mine, the heat of his body, the way my fingers had somehow fisted in his shirt without my permission. The car pulled up to his building. Salvatore opened the door discreetly, his gaze averted, and we rode the elevator in charged silence. Victor's hand found mine, and I didn't pull away. Inside the apartment, he poured us both wine, and we stood by the windows, looking out at the city. The same view I'd stared at for 2 weeks now, but tonight it looked different. Beautiful. Like something worth staying for. I have something to tell you, Victor said quietly, about why I've been watching you. The real reason. I turned to face him, surprised. I thought it was just random that you saw me that night running from Derek and decided to help. No. He took a sip of wine, his expression unreadable. It wasn't random at all. 7 months ago, you walked into an art gallery. Do you remember? I searched my memory. Vaguely. Derek took me to some opening. I hated it. He spent the whole night jealous of everyone who talked to me. I was there, watching you. Victor's gaze was intense. You were looking at a painting, a Caravaggio reproduction, and you said something to the woman next to you about the use of light and shadow. You were brilliant, passionate, completely unaware of how beautiful you were. And I thought... He paused. I thought, there's a woman worth knowing. My heart hammered. You've been watching me since then? I made inquiries, learned your name, your background, learned about Derek. His jaw tightened. And I watched. I saw the bruises you tried to hide, the way you flinched when he touched you, the fear in your eyes. And I decided that when you were ready to run, I would be there. That's insane. You didn't even know me. I knew enough. I knew you deserved better than a man who hurt you. I knew you were strong enough to leave but would need help staying gone. He set down his wine glass and moved closer. I knew that eventually you would be mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly. What if I don't want to be yours? I challenged, even though we both knew it was a lie. Then I'll let you go. The words surprised me. When Derek is dealt with, when the threat is gone, if you truly want to leave, I won't stop you. His hand found my face, thumb tracing my lower lip. But you won't want to leave, Kara, because by then, you'll have realized what I've known all along. What's that? That you were made for me, and I was made to keep you. The arrogance should have been infuriating. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my body betraying what my mind refused to admit. Tomorrow, Victor said, his voice dropping. Derek will make his move. My men have been spreading rumors about where you'll be, what time, how accessible. He'll come for you, and when he does, something dark flashed in his eyes. I'll be waiting. And then what? And then you'll be free, truly free, for the first time in over a year. He leaned closer, his mouth hovering over mine. And then, Mia Kara, you'll have a choice to make. Stay with me, or go back to your old life. What if... I swallowed hard. What if I've already made my choice? His smile was slow, triumphant. Then say it. Say you're mine. The words hovered on my lips, heavy with meaning, with surrender, with the admission that Victor had been right all along. I'd been his since that first kiss. I'd been his since he'd started watching over me. I'd been his since the moment I'd felt safe for the first time in 6 months. I'm yours, I whispered. His kiss was fierce, claiming, a seal on the words I'd finally spoken. He lifted me easily, my legs wrapping around his waist, and carried me to his bedroom. Not the guest room I'd been sleeping in, but his, the master suite with its enormous bed and view of the park and scent of him everywhere. Are you sure? He asked, even as he laid me on the bed, even as his hands found the zipper of my dress. Because once we do this, Yara, there's no going back. You'll be mine in every way. I'm already yours in every way, I admitted, helping him with the zipper, my own hands reaching for his shirt buttons. I have been for weeks. I was just too stubborn to admit it. His laugh was low, pleased. Stubborn. Yes, but mine. Finally, completely mine. What happened next was a claiming in the truest sense, his hands on my skin, his mouth everywhere, his voice murmuring in Italian as he showed me exactly what it meant to belong to Victor Castellano. Not the criminal, not the dangerous man who ordered deaths and built empires on fear. Just Victor, the man who'd watched over me for months, who'd bought a flower shop to make me happy, who'd made me feel safe when I'd forgotten what safety felt like. Mine, as much as I was his. Afterward, as we lay tangled in his sheets, his arm around me and my head on his chest, he spoke softly in the darkness. Tomorrow, when Derek comes, I need you to trust me. No matter what you see, no matter what happens. Trust that I'll keep you safe. I trust you, I said, and meant it. Good. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Sleep now, Kara. Tomorrow we end this. And then... His arm tightened around me. Then we start our life together. I should have been afraid of what tomorrow would bring. Should have worried about Derek, about violence, about the darkness that awaited us. But wrapped in Victor's arms, I felt only peace. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Home.